Hello, Atmore. It's the Lloyd and Friends show. And now here's your host, Lloyd Albritton.
All right, Lloyd Albritton here with a real delight this morning or this afternoon, whatever it may be. Finally found another guest who would come in and talk to me. This guy was, he was really hard. I had to drag him in here because he's afraid of me. Actually, my brother Greg is my special guest today. And, you know, years ago, as I've mentioned on the air here a few times, we came up in a rather good-sized family. There were 5 boys. And, you know, Gregory was, he was a little bit younger. And so, you know, he'd go to school with Ronnie and I. You know, when we were in first, second grade, we'd take a little brother to school as a, what do you call that, kind of a show and tell, show off little brother. And Mama would say, now, Gregory, you do what your brothers tell you now, you know. And so we'd tell Gregory, go here, go there. And he always minded. Well, you know, Mom and Daddy, they forgot to tell him. They never told him that still wasn't around. But, you know, Greg, he's supposed to be still doing what we tell him because we're the older brother. But we can't seem to get him to do that anymore. He's kind of got a little big for his britches here. Greg's quite an accomplished businessman, and I'm proud to have him here with him. In fact, I'm proud of him as a brother. But we're going to talk a little bit about Senator Greg Albritton today, but we're just going to, what's the word, put all seriousness aside. You can pretty much
like we usually do, okay?
If you know our family, you can pretty much count on the fact this will not be a real serious interview. And anything, don't take for granted anything that we say. It's probably all a bunch of lies. That's what we do one another. But we are, hopefully, with Greg, we'll do what we do with some of our other guests, is maybe you'll get to know him a little better. We're going to talk about some of the Greg Albritton that maybe some of you don't know. Probably touch on politics, maybe, but maybe not. So, Greg, why don't you say hello and start off with a little bio. Date of birth, where you were born, just kind of give me your little spiel.
Oh, yeah, I have to pay big money to keep all that stuff secret, Lloyd. I can't just blurt that out.
Well, I've threatened Gregory for years now to do a tell-all book on him, and so, you know.
Yeah, both pages.
That'd be a lot more than that.
Oh, hello, everybody who may be out there in radio land. It's always good to be a participant in Lloyd's endeavors, whether it be selling insurance or doing radio interviews. Sometimes it's the same audience. You and me, mostly, isn't it?
Well, Greg and I used to play on the same football team, I'll tell you that. We played in the backyard, and there were 4 brothers. The youngest one.
They always teamed me up with you. Why did they do that?
I don't know why. There was Ronnie and Philip against me and you.
Exactly.
And that was the teams, and we always lost because Gregory couldn't see good in those days. He finally got glasses. He couldn't catch a pass.
I didn't know I couldn't see good. I didn't know what seeing good was.
Well, I knew after a while because the ball kept just bouncing off of your chest. Now, Gregory was pretty good running back, but our running game just could not beat Ronnie and Phillip's passing game.
Well, you know, it always helps when you can see the ball.
That's right.
Now, you remember, I don't know if you know this, when I first got glasses and we were driving back from Pensacola, because in those days you had to go and get the prescriptions and figure out how bad off blind you was. And anyway, we went back down to Pensacola, got them, put them on, and I swear I spent the whole travel back surprised and excited that I could see not just cars, but the license plates. They actually had tags on them, and I could see they had numbers and letters. I had never seen those.
They had fences and trees out beside the roads you'd never seen before, too.
That is correct.
Excuse me. Well, you know, Gregory grew up out in Nokomis as a poor little black child. Well, no, he was a white guy, but he was poor. We didn't know we were poor during those days, but obviously when we look back and look at some of the things we did, we were pretty poor, I guess. Some of the stories that we tell today, people say, boy, you guys really make up a lot of lies. How do you make up all that stuff? We said, we're not making up any of it. It was pretty much that way. But we grew up in our early years out in Nokomis, and I'll let Gregory tell a little bit about that. Well, your impressions might be a little different than mine.
Most of them are. Most of mine are accurate too.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, really? Well, can I tell him the story of the bus, reliving the bus story? You want to tell that one?
The bus is always a good story there. Those make good stories. I had Paul Hollingsworth in here recently. And
did you? Did he? He was the one who
bus.
confirmed my analysis of where we went.
Okay, tell it. Yeah, okay.
Well, whether the bus went or didn't, the argument was.
Well, it was an hour. Let me say this: it was an hour ride.
Yeah, it was.
And we were one of the first pickups.
We were.
So we rode
the second pickup, actually.
The second pickup after Paul, the Hollingsworth boys.
Well, you can't count them as a pickup because that's where they lived.
That's where they started.
Yeah, it was the Flowers Girl.
But we all got in the car here a year or so ago, all of my brothers, Greg, and we decided to retrack that route. And there were a little bit of disagreement.
A little bit.
Just
I had to stop and put you guys out. Anyway, we started going. I started traveling the road that I remembered. Being as wise as I am, I brought my truck and made everybody ride, so I was in control. So I'm driving the truck along the thing, and we were rehearsing and how Mr. Jake came and he did this, and as soon as we couldn't even get to the first stop, that Lloyd and Ronnie and Philip and Susan didn't remember a lot of it, but the older three kept saying, no, it's wrong. You got that messed up, and it didn't go there. We came around, and I as always, I did not listen to them, and I drove the route that I knew, and they fussed at me the whole way, and we even started having arguments who was getting on and getting off. But it took about 3 weeks later. 3 weeks after that trip, and we finally got home safe, and we didn't kill each other, but they were always angry at me after that. And then 3 weeks later, I get a phone call, not from Ronnie, not from Lloyd, but from Philip. And Philip had ran into Paul Hollingsworth, Mr. Jake's son.
Okay.
All right. And he challenged Paul about this, and Paul, without knowing who or what, corrected Philip and told him that my analysis of the route,
your version,
was no, not my version. It was the truth. Okay,
it was only a version.
No, y'all's had a version, but mine was anyway. He confirmed that.
Well, Ronnie and I were older, Gregory, so our memories are more intact. You got to factor that in.
I think that's a reverse. Your memories are worse, and
but all of our early years, we all went to little Davisville school out in Davisville. And who was your favorite teacher out there, Greg?
Who was my favorite teacher?
I
guess my first grade teacher was Miss Copeland.
Miss Copeland, yeah.
Yeah, y'all had Miss Bradley. Y'all wore her out, so I had to break Miss Copeland in.
Now, Miss Copeland was a strict disciplinarian.
Do you know who our daddy was?
Well, yeah, it wasn't that hard.
I've been whipped by both. Okay,
but I was scared to death of Miss Copeland. I had pink eye one time, and stayed out of school for 3 days with a pink eye. And when I went back to school, I told Miss Copeland. She said, "Well, Lloyd, we've missed you, and why were you out of school?" I said, "Well, I had the pink eye." And she said something like, "Oh, I wouldn't think you'd have to be out of school for 3 days just for the pink eye." Well, I went home and told my mama that. Miss Copeland said I didn't need to be out that long, and Mama just got steamed. You had to know our mother. She was a very quiet, subdued type of person. When she lost her temper, you had to look out. But she sat down and wrote a long letter to Miss Copeland, just blessing her out, and sealed it, handed it to me the next day to take in. which I did, and I handed it to Miss Copeland, and she said, "Well, good morning, Lloyd. It's good to see you. Go sit at your desk now and do your workbook." I said, "Mama said give you this." So I handed her that letter, and she sat up there, and as she read it, her face was just steaming. I could see it. She called me up, and she said, "What did you tell your mother?" I said, what he said in that letter. She said, "You go sit down and do that workbook. I don't want to hear no more from you. You liar." Oh, that about scared me to death. But Miss Copeland was a wonderful teacher, as all of them were over at Davisville. Mm-hmm. And we had those good lunches over there, too. You remember the lunches from Davisville?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Horton did all the purchasing. He was the principal.
Oh, he did everything, didn't he?
He did pretty much everything.
He did the teaching. He did the disciplinarian, everything. Yeah.
He did everything. Well, Greg, we had Philip on here recently, and we declared him to be. Miss Stone said that Philip was the only one of us that was actually smart, that the rest of us pretty much faked it. And, of course, Greg was one of Miss Stone's favorites.
Are you kidding me? She beat the tar out of me.
But she liked you. She whipped.
I wonder what I wouldn't have survived if she hadn't liked me.
She always whipped the kids that she liked. But no, Miss Stone, you became friends with Miss Stone later in life.
Oh, yeah.
I stayed friends with her for years, as we all did. But I think she was especially fond of you. In fact, she even came to a couple of events.
Yeah,
that's true. You had when you were commanding officer of the reserve unit.
She sure did. Yeah,
she attended that, and but Greg, he wasn't the smartest one, but he was the most probably headstrong one. We've told the tale probably too many times about Gregory's being so obnoxious as a kid that we would tie him to a tree out in the woods, and sometimes Mom would have to go hunt him. When she counted
they
up,
changed the story. They changed the story several times. There's a couple of corrections. First off, going back to the beginning of this.
Tree, it was a creosote light pole.
Exactly. It was a creosote light pole. That's right. And you didn't tie me to the back. You put me facing the thing.
Facing it, with your arms around it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and tied him up. And also, we should know this. They had a little. Back in the day, we played pretty rough. All the boys did, and we had a lot of hitting games and stuff. And we had somebody came to school that they figured out that if you took 10 deep breaths,
oh gosh,
and then one of the other boys could stand behind you and squeeze your chest real hard, that you'd pass out. And that little fad started going around school till the teachers, I think, got onto it and made us stop doing that.
Well, yeah, having kids fall out was disturbing.
So Gregory, he was in elementary school when I was in the 7th or 8th or
something like that,
up in the high school. So he didn't know about this. So every day Greg would come home and I would get him out behind the house and put him out 2 or 3 times. And I've always felt responsible for the brain damage that Greg suffered.
As well, you should.
From that. We just don't know, what kind of damage I might have caused.
Whatever lack of oxygen does, I used to know. I can't remember now.
But there wasn't too many things that we didn't do as boys.
You remember the later we did the knuckle games?
Oh, the hitting the knuckles.
Yeah, the reflex hitting knuckles.
We do that till our hands bled.
Well, until your hands bled. I never did. Okay?
Now, I admit you could always beat me at checkers because you always cheated. But
what's your point?
The knuckle thing, I won a few of those. Well, the only problem with that knuckle game is that we carried it on even into adulthood. So when we'd get together for Thanksgiving dinners and stuff, it was always a little disturbing to Mama that the boys still wanted to play this hit and knuckle game, and we were well into our 20s by that time.
I didn't remember your Mama being upset about it. I remember our wives being concerned.
Were upset. Yeah. Well, Gregory, he married a out-of-state girl. If she'd have been a good old Southern girl, grew up down here in Pineville or somewhere, she would have understood.
Scared y'all to death, didn't it?
She would have understood. It scared those girls to death. They'd never seen a bunch of, as Daddy called us, heathens.
Which is a fair description.
Yeah, yeah. I've often thought about that, just how correct Daddy was on so many things that I didn't know. Daddy had 7 sisters, and they would often come visit. They live in Mobile, over in Mississippi or something. And I don't know if you remember this, but Daddy would tell us all to go play out in the woods because we scared people. He said, "You youngins are a bunch of heathens. Don't be coming up here in the house playing rough like that, with kinfolk all here."
Didn't that lead, or that because y'all threw Eddie in a ditch with a rabid fox? Is that where that
Eddie,
people the fear came from, Lloyd?
Yeah. It might have been. Yeah,
I think it probably was. Yeah.
But anyway, just getting right back, Gregory was not an artist, but he was always quite cunning in checker games and so forth. And I've never caught him cheating yet, but I know that he cheats. Nobody could be that good at checkers or chess. But in any event, Gregory, let's kind of hit a little bit the side of Greg Albritton that most people don't know. Putting all seriousness aside.
I thought that.
Now
yes,
you got out of school. You graduated from down here, Walnut Hill, didn't you?
Yep.
The family moved around a little bit.
Yep. We went down. I went to 3 or 4 schools in Pensacola, and then we moved back up here. Graduated from Walnut Hill. Last 2 years of school was here.
Last 2 years, and you played some sports. I know you couldn't see, so I know you didn't play basketball.
I was slow.
You couldn't ring the goal.
I couldn't. I was short and couldn't see. Yeah.
And it didn't have wrestling. You would have been pretty good at wrestling.
I did a little wrestling in Woodham when I was down there. Did a little bit of wrestling there.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Well enough that I'd put one of the major football players on his back.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well, if we'd had it at Walnut Hill, you would probably been a good contender. But Gregory played football.
But I cheated at that, too.
And they never threw him any passes. Wouldn't do any good, just bounce off of him. But he was tough. You couldn't hurt him. We had beat him up enough as a little brother that we knew you couldn't hurt him. So he made a pretty good football player. You liked football, didn't you?
I did. I did.
What did you play? You play on the line or running? You didn't.
I played everywhere, Lloyd. I was too slow for running. I was too small for line. I was too, I didn't fit anywhere, so they put me everywhere. As a junior here at Walnut Hill, Mike Phillips was our center. Okay. And big guy, 230 pounds and such. And then one game, he turned his ankle over and sprained his ankle, and we didn't have a backup center. So Mike Hanks, who was the quarterback, just got everybody in line and started hiking the ball to him. And I hiked the ball to him, and he says, "I like this one." So I became the center. The smallest one out there, and I became the center.
Yeah.
But
did you ever do the center sneak and run with the ball?
Not intentionally.
Sometimes you forgot. So Greg graduated from school down here in Walnut Hill. We were the country boys, and Atmore was the city boys. Seems like it's always been that way throughout history, hasn't it? City boys against the country boys.
Always has been, always will be.
Yeah. So we were the country boys. We were admittedly pretty ignorant. And we had pretty girls out there that the city boys tended to come out in the country there and take our girls. And so we were always, when we'd go to town, it was mostly to fight the city boys about something. Usually it's about taking our girls or something like that. I don't know if you got involved in that. It might have been before your time.
Lloyd, I know that you were always engaged in fisticuffs whenever you could be. I learned from the whoopings I took at home that there was a better way to live.
Well, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but later in life, during one of my wild periods, there was a big guy. He didn't like me, if you can believe that, and he wanted to whoop up on me. And I said, well, let me just tell you one thing before you do that. You know, I've been in probably over 300 fights in my life, and I've never won one yet. So you can't hurt me. You can't win. This is a true story. The guy hugged my neck and said, I love this guy. So I came out of that thinking, you know, I'm not a very good fighter, but I was a pretty good talker.
What was interesting, Lloyd, you always did the fight thing, but you had this propensity to get nosebleeds, even without a fight.
That's true. I was a bleeder.
You were one of my early
That's the only way I
memories.
could win, bleed all over me. Just slang my head around. You know?
Yeah.
But Greg, you graduated at Walnut Hill, and then you stayed at home a while, didn't you?
No.
You worked around.
No.
Didn't you do some part-time work or something?
No,
That was during high school.
During
You
high
worked
school.
at a hospital orderly or something.
Yeah, when I graduated from high school, it was time for me to go. All right, as it was for most of us, and I didn't want to follow in the footsteps of my brothers and go into the Marine Corps. So I went down to Pensacola.
You were scared, weren't you?
I was smarter. Well, anyway,
Well, I'll omit. That's a possibility.
anyway, I went down to Pensacola, lived with some folks, and got a job down there, and I worked as an orderly in the hospital for just over a year, I guess.
That was after you graduated from school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, as most of you know, Greg and I grew up most of our lives from our early teens as a member of the LDS Church. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. And so, as many people know, young Mormon boys go on church missions. I was a little older than Greg when we converted to the church. I was only 14, so I got out of school and got married. And I never did that, but Greg came a little later, and he was indoctrinated more toward that direction. And so you did, didn't you, Greg?
Yeah, I
you
did.
went on a church mission.
Yep, went on a church
Tell us
mission.
about that. Where'd you go, and what'd you do?
Traveled to. Well, Philip did too. Philip went.
Philip did.
Yeah, he went. He went to Austria, over to Europe, in the late '60s. That was still a very Cold War thing. Me, I thought I was going to get someplace, exotic or someplace
Like Hawaii.
or the Indonesia or Malaysia or something. I went to Washington State.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then if you
That's
ever
how you became a liberal?
no,
No, we didn't
I've never taken that step.
But,
Anyway,
maybe that's how you became a conservative.
anyway, that was a shock. That was a very, very interesting.
You'd never been away from home before, probably anywhere.
Well, no, we never more than 60 miles from home. Hurley, Mississippi, was about as far as we'd go.
That
but
was the big city, Hurley.
but the style, the lifestyle, the culture, everything was different, and that was quite an interesting time frame.
And that was a 2-year stint.
Yep.
Okay. What'd you learn from that?
Mostly what I learned was about myself.
How so?
The aspect of when you go, there's rules and guidelines and such, but the enforcement is all on your own. Okay, and
They don't really crack the whip over you.
No,
or make you.
No, and so you learn that it's within yourself to do this. And I remember at one point one of my favorite stories tell about that is I slept in. I got in with a companion that didn't see the need for rules, and so we got into a sleeping in. I said, "Well, I got to fix that. I can't do that. I got to start doing." So you remember these little travel clocks? What? That, have fold up things.
They kind of fold out.
Yeah, it had an alarm on it, and so I had me one of those, and I'm going to start setting my clock. Well, I set the clock, and I don't know if I did it wrong, whatever, but it didn't work. So I wake up 2 hours late, and I look at this, and I says, "Man, I gotta fix this stupid clock." So I get my fingernail clippers or whatever, and I start taking the back off, and I get all the innards out and start looking, and I don't know what I'm doing. And then finally, it dawned on me as I'm working on this. It dawned on me that the problem was not the clock. The problem was not in the clock. The problem was in me. and
You thought it was still Central Time, I bet. No,
no,
it was like a year before you changed your clock.
exactly.
You were starting to function.
No, that just taught me a life lesson that change is difficult, and change has got to be an inward thing. It can't be an outward thing. And so anyway,
Is that really a word, inward and outward?
it is.
Okay.
That's kind of like if'ns and us'ns.
Okay. Okay. So it was a strange thing for you being out in a big state of. Were you all over the state?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
what were
yeah.
you-
I went to, Seattle is the huge town there, and it takes in all up and down the Puget Sound there. I was in several different areas of that.
They leave you in one area about how long? 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, about 4 months on average, and move you around different places.
and you
I
have
was-
different companions. You're not
Yeah.
with the same guy the whole
No,
time.
no, you're always with different folks going around, and
Well, what are some of the rules that you had to follow that were difficult for you? I mean, I know they have y'all are
Lloyd,
they're
you know
all
where
you're
you
young
you know
boys.
who we are, okay?
Yeah.
Following any rule is not an easy thing for us'ns.
Well,
okay?
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
There's a new word too.
For us, it's okay. Mind if I write that down?
No one having to. I don't know, what was the question?
Well, some of the rules you had to follow. I mean, a couple,
Well, other
couple
than-
of young boys. I know. You'd probably love to just y'all slept in until about noon or so, or
No.
we were up and at 'em early in the morning.
Yeah, the schedule was always up at 6 and in by 9, basically. Okay, and you had to do so many of these visits, so much of this, and you had a regular tight schedule. But again, the only people that tracked it was yourself. All right. And then the interviews with the mission president, the older guy who was on his mission,
to
overseeing
supervise all
Yep,
the young boys.
exactly. And so sticking to a schedule, and that was hard for me to do. All right, I did it mostly. I
And you
ran
had
off the
certain
rails some.
structured study hours too, did
Yeah,
you
yes,
not?
exactly.
You had, things that you maybe before you went on your mission, going out, quote, preaching to people.
Right.
You probably didn't know as much as you thought you knew when you got out there.
That's correct. That is correct.
So-
there are certain things that you did. One thing I did on mission in study time that I did that I still have it, I guess. I went through and started figuring out the time frame of when certain things occurred. You take the creation, and it talks about, and tapping the table, and I calculated the time frames of things. And anyway, I did that according to Genesis. I made the determination that the flood occurred in the year 2929 BC. All right. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but I think that's.
Sounds about right. Somewhere I have those dates.
You remember that?
written down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 2040. It was 2044 BC or something.
Oh, okay.
Something 44.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I had that memorized at one point.
Yeah, but I calculated mine.
Do you remember? You remember how when we first converted to the church, that these young boys that came and taught us, it seemed like they knew so many scriptures that they could just quote off the top of their head. I never seen anybody that knew that many scriptures, and they would drive around in the car and they would type them up on little 3x5 cards. And you remember you and I started doing that.
Yep.
I still have in my desk drawer those old cards to where I memorized maybe a couple hundred of them.
Yeah, there was.
And I still use them now that they're embedded in my mind.
We
that-
set the
that
pace for
practice.
that. I don't know if you know this or not, but you had about 200. I think it was about 175 or something.
Yeah,
like
on a
that.
little chain.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't go that. I wasn't that formalized or organized, but I did get somewhere around 125, 130 scriptures memorized. Okay. And what's interesting now is in seminary, there's the doctrinal scripture learning. They've adopted what you and I were doing. And they have 100
cards?
scriptures. No, they don't do cards now. It's all electronic.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it's interesting how you do things that are good that you don't even know that they're good until somebody does them.
Just discover them accidentally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what did you learn from your mission that you still carry with you? You know, I mean, I was in the Marine Corps, and there are still things that I do that are just part of me because I was 8 years in the Marine Corps. 2 years as a missionary for the church. What would you name one thing that you still part of who you are? That you,
Well,
discipline
one
that
thing
you learned?
I mentioned about how most of what I learned was about myself. The other I learned was three things I learned. Number one, I guess myself. I learned a lot about that. Number two, I learned about other people, and um, when you're dealing with them and how to deal with them and the different types and things that are all aspects. And number three, I learned about God. I learned about the gospel. And those three things have been the pattern for my life in how I deal with things. Haven't always been perfect.
But you had that structure.
I had that structure and background and understanding that I had to incorporate. So,
Okay. So you did your 2-year mission. You came back. Somewhere along here, you went in the service. What service were you in?
depends on which time.
Oh, you were in twice. That's right. All right. Well, start with when you came back from your mission.
Oh, look, I got at least 5 different DD-214s.
From different getting out in the same.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure they all.
But you started out in the Air Force.
I did. Yep. After mission, I came home and went to, Mom was living in New Orleans, and I went there and tried to get work at New Orleans. You ever tried to get work in New Orleans? Anyway,
There is no work in New Orleans. I don't think they work over there.
not any legal work. Anyway, so anyway, I came to Pensacola one day, and I had my toothbrush with me because that's all I had.
In your pocket,
in my pocket, and I went into the place where all the recruiting things were, and I saw the Army, and I saw the Marine Corps, and
Was that down on 4 North Palafox?
yeah.
That's the same place I signed up for
exactly.
Marines.
Second deck, I think it was.
All the recruiting officers were there.
Yep. And they were giving me the song and dance. Of course, this was in 1971. All right.
Okay.
So the Vietnam Tet had over, and everybody was trying to find a way to get out. Okay. So they weren't taking a lot of folks at that point. So no one was really excited about this Yahoo with his toothbrush walking in. But
You thought you were going to ship out that day?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Well, not only that, but I had no place else to put my toothbrush. But anyway, so anyway, I'll go in and to the Air Force, and the Air Force guy, oh, wait a minute, where'd you graduate? And I told him. He says, just a second. He jumps up and pulls this file thing out, and he says, yeah, I got your thing here. You scored a so-and-so. Sign here.
Oh, is that right? Signed you right up?
Sign me right up. And,
4 years or 6?
4.
4. I think they do 6 now as their minimum.
Signed up before. And I said, so when do I leave? He says, when you're ready. I said, I got my toothbrush.
You did ship out that day?
No, he couldn't.
You didn't.
He says, I can't do it that way. He says, we'll get you to Montgomery this time. Anyway, it was only about 10 days. Okay, 10 days, 2 weeks at the most.
Okay.
And in fact, I didn't have the paperwork. I didn't have nothing. I just kind of guessed at when to show up again. And so I wound up in Montgomery and the wrong date. I was a week early. Don't worry about it. And they took me and shipped me out.
So you went in the Air Force, and I believe you were still in the Air Force when you got married, weren't you?
Yeah.
Didn't you get married?
Got
during that
married
first stage?
about, let's see, I went in 71. Yep. And September 71. And got married in June of 74.
Oh, okay. So you're in for 3 years almost.
2.5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And at one point, weren't you stationed down at Eglin? Or
Oh, yeah.
somewhere?
Mhm.
That's where you were. Okay.
Yep, that's where I met Deb. Yep.
Okay. So your wife is Deb, and her family was military, were they not?
Yeah.
Her father was like a general or something, wasn't he? Or
No, he
Colonel?
didn't make general. He was disappointed about that. But he was also of that ilk, meaning he was from Mississippi, and he joined the Coast Guard.
Okay.
Not the Navy. He joined the Coast Guard in 1942. He had turned 17, and they took him, and he wound up manning a Navy ship Now, they did that back then. They took a Navy ship commissioned with the Navy, but they manned it with Coast Guard personnel.
Really?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
They did that with several, okay? He was one of them. In fact, they had a whole flotilla of the. Anyway, he went served in the Battle of Atlantic through the whole World War II time frame. Battles left and right. When he went to his, he told this story over and over again. It's where he and his buddy, his good buddy, were in line to go get assignments, and they get there, and he says, "Okay, you go to the Leopold, his buddy," and just said, "You go to the pool, his pool." So they get different ships, okay, but they were in the same flotilla, they were in the same convoys and such.
Right.
They were attacked one night, submarine attacks, and the Leopold, as his buddy was in, caught a torpedo and went down.
That was Greg's phone. Shut it off.
And with most hands, he thought all hands, but there were some survivors. But he talked about that up until his death date.
Really?
Yeah, because it had such a major effect on him. I mean, he was only 18 when that occurred, and he was on the open deck at his battle station when he saw the ship hit and burning and sinking. So yeah, it had no tremendous effect on him. But anyway, he got out, got through, survived that, and later he was recruited by the brand new Army the Air Force, the new Air Force.
I see. Okay.
And then he got in and flew aircraft, all kinds of aircraft, from 1947, I think it was, up until he retired in 75 or 76.
Well, I guess, did you have to pass inspection before you got his daughter, or did he give you a hard time?
That's another story.
Okay, we may not have time for that one.
No.
We'll come back to it. So you completed your Air Force time, and you got out here. You were married, maybe a child yet?
Oh, yeah, we had, let's see, Aaron, Preston,
Couple?
at least two. I think the third one was born, yeah, two of them were born in the Air Force, and one was born soon thereafter.
Okay. So you got out here, you were without a job, so you worked for a while. Now, I know we're going to get into this shortly, but you later went into the Navy, but there was a period there that you were...
Yeah, I went through, I continued.
Working.
I went to college while I was in the Air Force.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Part-time, and then I got out, had to go get a job, but I continued through. I finally got graduated. Only took me 7 years to get my undergraduate degree.
Where'd you go to school?
Several places. I started at Okaloosa Walton. You remember that place? Mm-hmm. Okay, I started out there, and the Air Force transferred me to Hill, and there I started at Weber, and that's where Weber State University. That's where I eventually graduated.
Okay, majoring in business.
Business, yeah.
Okay, so you completed your college after you got out of the Air Force.
Correct.
Continued your family.
Mm-hmm.
You've got how many kids now?
6.
You have a total of 6 kids. So your family you couldn't figure out what was going on there, right? They just kept kept coming.
I can only do what I'm told.
I want to do what I'm told. And so ultimately, though, you decided to go back into this military service. So what led you in that direction?
Well, at that time, we had 4 kids.
Right.
Okay. And I was working, had a job with a business, and doing all right. And I was also in the National Guard at that point.
Okay.
Drilling.
And if I remember correctly, you were pushing the age to where
I was.
You had to make that choice,
Exactly.
like 29 or something.
Something like that. Yeah, it was.
I think
And
you were 29.
I was. I noticed when the pay scales came out one day that an E4 was being paid more than I was with a college degree outside. I said, "What's going?" So anyway, at that point, that's why I looked and went to OCS, got picked up with the Navy OCS, and
Okay.
Navy.
Went in as an ensign, I guess an ensign. Not
Ensign,
an
yep.
ensign, but an ensign.
Yeah.
Which that Navy rank is a little bit different than Army and Marine Corps.
Always better.
So you were in the Navy. You went out on ships and learned
Yep.
about boats and ships and
Sure
stuff
did.
like
Enjoyed
that.
Enjoyed the Navy. It was a great learning experience.
And then in time, as you developed, you got a really plum assignment, bringing you back to Alabama.
Yeah, I did.
Tell me about
I
that.
fell into that. time rolled around for shore duty, and I got selected or got orders finally to Mobile, back home, if you will, and was signed as CO of the Reserve Center in Mobile, and stayed there for 3 years.
Stayed there for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And while you were in that assignment, pretty easy assignment, pretty laid back, high stress.
Well, after sea duty, everything's a
laid
plum,
back.
okay?
Okay, but you got your idea. I remember at one point, I don't remember if you was in the Air Force or the Navy then, that you had this big idea you were going to start a chicken farm. I don't know if you remember. My father, all of his life, he managed a chicken farm in Montgomery, Alabama one time. And all of his life, he sat around the kitchen table with a piece of paper, calculating how one day he was going to have his own chicken farm.
Yes, he did. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I guess Greg maybe got that from Daddy.
Of course I did, yeah.
And he came up with this idea he was going to have a chicken farm. I don't know what happened to that. But you did get an idea for business that you were going to start a business. Mm-hmm. And you started a business, counseling, credit counseling.
Yep.
And you started that while you were as an officer in the Navy.
Well, kind of, sort of. It was all kind of set up and such along that line. But I made some errors as far as how and getting the division such and there, because I kind of fell into that of trying to help some of my folks that were in the Navy,
right?
Because there was nothing around in Mobile to do anything like that.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
guys trying to pay their bills, how to figure out the budget.
Yep.
Probably some of them couldn't even write a check or, the basic stuff. Huh?
So anyway, that's I got started with that, and then I quickly moved into real estate appraisal work.
Real estate appraisal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That became my major matter, and timing was right on that, and that took off.
You had pretty good success with that. You did that for several years.
Yeah, I did that for about 20 years.
Yeah.
Then I went to law school.
Now tell us about that law school. That's kind of an interesting story. You decided to go to law school, and you went up to Jones.
Yeah.
Where is that? That's in Birmingham, Montgomery? In Montgomery. And you got in. That was kind of a little bit of a freak story, wasn't it?
That's Debbie tells it differently, okay? But I'd been planning on it. That's what my last year in the Navy, knowing that I was going to get off active duty, I had to do something. So I started preparing for law school, which meant that you had to take the LSAT test, okay?
Okay.
And I studied for that for a year. And eventually I did, close to a year, a long number of months. And I took the LSAT, did pretty well with it, got all my stuff together I needed to, and I get out, and all the things that transpire, you get moved, all the things to try to get prepared for that. But I'm still not in law school. Haven't even applied yet, okay? And now it's been a year since I got out, and I'm still, so I said, well, I just got to do this. So it was early 92, in January of 92, and I said, I'm just got to do this. So I jump in and drive to Montgomery. Never been to this place before. Found it, and this is before GPS, okay? And
I remember those days.
Yeah. And I'll walk into the thing and tell them what I want to do, and they take me into the big dog, and the big dog says, what do you want to do? And I tell them what I want to do. And I said,
you want to go to law school?
Yeah, I want to go to law school. And he says, well, what have you done? I said, well, here's my LSAT scores right here, okay? And here's my transcripts, copy of my transcripts. I know you have to get those official, but these are what you'll get there. And I'd like to start as soon as I can. And of course, I dressed up in my suit and such,
Put your tie on.
Put my tie on, yeah, brushed my teeth. And
combed your hair.
Yeah. And the guy looks at the numbers and looks at me, and he says, I tell you what, he says, give me a couple of hours, come back about 1:30, okay? And okay. So I take off and, go gas station and get a drink. Anyway, I eventually come back. And I walk in, Dean Smith, that was his name, sees me and comes in, and he stands up and says, congratulations, Mr. Albritton, you're in law school. You'll start your class here in about an hour and a half.
Really?
Really.
And your wife was, you probably told your wife, I'll be home by 3.
Yeah, I had to call her at a payphone in those days.
It was a
Okay,
payphone.
and tell her I ain't coming home till So yeah, that's why I started.
Well, how about that? How'd you do in law school? Did you like it from the get-go, or was it tough?
It was tough. I mean, you have to remember, law school is one thing. Running your own business is another. 6 young'uns, teenagers, is another problem. And all that at one time makes life a burden.
I can imagine.
And it was the toughest thing I did.
Pretty tough. Mm-hmm. So you finished, well, you got your law degree. Did you then go right into practicing?
Yeah. I was too
You
old.
hung your shingle? You didn't work for another big firm?
No, didn't know. Look, I was 40 when I got to that point, okay? Mm-hmm. Oh, in fact, it was 42. 43, somewhere around there, when I finally and I passed the bar the first time, okay? And plus I was too independent. I was an Albritton. It's hard for us to work for people.
Well, that's true. I've always found that hard. I've been fired more than the average guy. just because they didn't like me.
Exactly, yeah. So I just started. And after I got the law license and such, I said, well, I'm a lawyer, and I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. So I started going to the courthouse and finding where cases were going to be done. And so there was this one criminal case going on. It was a rape case, a terrible tragedy story about an old man and a young girl. And anyway, a newborn came from it. And I'm not involved in this case, but I go in and sit in the courthouse to watch. Right. Is this really Per Mason or not, Right. And as I'm watching that and everything, and then after a break, the judge says, okay, we're going to take a break. And he says, Greg, come out in the hall with me. Okay. So I walk out there, and he says, okay, look, I know you're just getting started and everything, but I need you. I'm going to appoint you to this murder case. You're going to be defending this guy. Wait a minute, Judge. I can't spell law. How am I going to defend this guy?
Well, now, Kevin McKinley, I interviewed him just recently. Now, he was telling me something I did not know, that for murder cases, you have to be certified in some unique way.
Well, you do now. Then you did not.
Then you didn't. Okay.
Now, even then, you couldn't do, if it were capital murder, you had to have 5 years experience. But this was simple murder, if you want to call it that.
A simple murder. Okay.
Yeah. It was a tragedy. Most things in courtrooms are tragedies, so one way or another. And the unfortunate part of that tragedy is that it looks like they had the wrong guy. He walked.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that was quite a case for your first case.
It was.
To have a winner like a guy that you feel pretty good was innocent. I mean, he didn't lie his way out of it or anything.
The evidence wasn't there.
Okay.
The prosecution, I don't know if it's what we did, the defense, or whether the prosecution just failed to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm of the mindset that they messed up with.
But either way, you had a part in helping somebody that could have been in prison.
Yeah.
Still today.
Yep.
Okay. So our clock is ticking. We got about just short of 10 more minutes because we fooled around too much on the front end, which is what I was afraid of. But I want to get you up to where you are. So at some point, you decided you were interested in politics. And you ran.
Well, we've always been interested in politics.
Well, we've always
enjoyed
enjoyed
politics,
talking about it,
all our lives. Okay?
But you thought that you could possibly even run for office.
Yeah.
And you did.
Yeah.
You ran for representative.
Yeah. In '98, when I just got mad. Just couldn't.
Things that were going on.
Yeah. I said, if anybody can do this job, certainly I can figure it out. So I didn't know what I was doing. I just
don't we all say that sometimes?
Yeah, exactly. and that's a good thing. I think more people ought to. I think everybody needs to run for public office. All right, it's a learning curve. But anyway, I lost in '98. Came back in '02 and won.
So you ran for representative first time and did not win.
Correct.
First time. Okay, I thought you ran on the first.
No.
Okay.
And then won on the second try. Then in '06, I lost in the primary, and then sat out. I tried one more time in '09 in a special session for Senate, and in that it was 8 counties. I took the western county, and the other guy took the eastern county, and I had more population, and somehow he got more votes. So, that's how the politics runs.
You're learning. I guess the learning curve was fairly steep. Not as far as doing the job, but how to get to the job, huh?
Well, that's one
there's
thing,
an art
yeah.
or a science or whatever to
Exactly. Because no one tells you these things. All right, no one let me rephrase that. No one tells you the truth about these things.
that.
Okay, how to do and what to do. You figure it out, trial and error. And the same
Sometimes
thing
you got to miss 2 or 3 times to get there.
Exactly.
You're sounding kind of like Abraham Lincoln, who they said ran like 20 times before he.
Well, I have a little better of a record.
A little better record. But you do have to learn, and nobody tells you, so it's just kind of a learning experience.
Exactly.
Just the running part.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so once you got there, how long did it take you to find the bathroom? You got all these big halls and everything. I mean,
Bathroom
did
wasn't
they give
the
you a
problem.
key right off to the bathroom?
The bathroom was not the problem.
Okay.
The problem was trying to figure out how to file a bill, how to write a bill, how to kill a bill, and what in the world is a bill.
Which I know none of those things.
And talk about a learning curve. It is steep because there is no training wheels on this. When you're elected, you take office. And when you're in elected office, then you are required to make votes and you are required to make decisions. It doesn't matter whether you know what the right decision is or not. You have to make it.
Kind of like David Crockett going to Congress, isn't it?
Precisely, it is. And you hear all these different voices about what to do. And of course, everybody wants you to do what they tell you to do. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Don't worry about it. Just do what I tell you. Okay? And
people within your party or across the board? Just
across the board. Across the board.
All the old timers kind of, this is the way it is, and son, sit down and listen to me.
Mostly folks back home.
Okay.
Okay? Usually you can do what people want back home, but most of the time the people back home haven't been given the information. It just doesn't get out there. Newspapers don't report much. They can't. It's not enough room. And even if they reported it, most people can't or doesn't read it. And anyway, it's you've got to have the ability to make the decisions and then take the heat for those decisions. And that...
Does the reality of politics, we all say, if we could just get a guy up there, just go up there and just do the right thing. Doing the right thing is not always, I'm sure, as easy as it sounds, because there's got to be pressures from every corner to do this, do that. But ultimately, it does boil down to doing the right thing, doesn't it?
No.
No?
Because right is
subjective.
Yeah, it is. It's subjective. It's right for who? Doing something right for one is doing wrong to the other.
Okay, I can see that.
All right. If you're going to tax someone, that's bad, unless you use the taxes to pay someone to teach your children, or and a host of other things such as it's all wrapped into those things, and yeah, it's never a simple, easy question. Gas tax is a hot topic and will continue to be, because we did it, and there's been good that came from it, but does that good match up for everybody in Stapleton or in Atmore to pay gas tax and see roads built someplace else? Okay, I don't see mine being built, type thing. There's never a right and wrong.
Well, we've
It's
all
more like this and that.
Yeah, we've all seen the movies where the lawyers fight like they're mortal enemies, and then they go golfing together or go out and have drinks together or whatever. All these guys sitting up there. How many you got up there?
There's 35 in the Senate, 105 in the House.
105 in the House and 35 in the Senate, and most of them are pretty opinionated.
Strong personalities.
Maybe on the personality profile and the disagreeable.
A little bit of an ego.
Yeah, a little bit of an ego. So, are you guys? Do you build camaraderie and what's the word? Harmony, or is that the antithesis of what you experience? I mean, do you build naturally in the system is set up to? Do you just hate your opponents, or you go like, shake hands and your friends?
You have to find a way, and there needs to be more of this in society in general. You have to be able to find a way to treat people well, regardless of your
even
personal
if you
feelings.
disagree with them.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part of politics for you? I mean, I know you love it. You keep running for it, and I know it's
I enjoy the work. I really enjoy the work, Lloyd. It's interesting and exciting. Having a say that matters that affect my home state and my people, okay, is important to me. I like that. I have a tendency to be a bit of a nerd on some things. You see my pens, but anyway,
yeah, the pocket protector.
yeah. But I do enjoy that, and it is important work. But it has like anything else. There's difficulties, and it takes its toll.
Yeah. Well, there's a real quick story. Years ago, I had a friend of mine. I came down here from New Jersey, and I took him over to meet my father, and he really liked my father, and he just was going on and on and on about him. Boy, your father, what a great guy. I really like that guy. And my son at that time was about 5 or 6 years old, and he had spent a lot of time with his grandfather, and he loved him, but he knew, he had those temper tantrums sometimes. And finally he leaned across the seat, and he sucked his teeth and says, "Well, wait till you get to know him. You won't like him." But Greg, I will have to say, because you're my brother, I pick up and listen out what people think, and I think hopefully you'll do well the next election cycle. People seem to like you because you are constantly likable.
Tell Debbie that.
But anyway, I occasionally joke to people. They'll say, "Boy, Greg's doing a good job," and I say, "Well, wait till you get to know him. You won't like him."
Yeah.
But most of the time, in fact, that's why one reason that I decided to do this little program, because there are other people like you that people know. They know of you. They know who you are, but they don't really know you. So, we didn't really want to talk about this bill or that bill, but I wanted people to kind of get to know who Greg is, and there's a lot more that we could talk about. We could go on for hours here, but our time has run out.
Oh, my.
And
there is relief.
Greg is over here just sweating bullets. He knows I'm gonna ask him that big question, but I'm gonna let him off the hook. But Greg Albritton has been our guest. He's a state senator in Alabama, and by all accounts, he's doing a great job up there. And for him, I guess it's fun. For me, it would be pure misery. So I'm glad he's got the job. And those of you who have listened to the program, I can tell you as his brother that he's the real deal. What you see is what you get. If he was pretentious, he'd talk better than he does instead of using those us'ns and you'ns and all that. But there's no pretension about Gregory. He is what you see. And in any event, Greg, thanks for
having me, Lloyd.
Taking a little time to share with me on the program. I hope people will enjoy it. I know they will.
Good.
You
all
go
right.
out and have yourself a great day.
All right.
The Lloyd Albritton signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Lloyd and Friends Show with Lloyd Albritton.